So we are familiar with some classical models of finance, kind of uh, portfolio optimization, then capital asset pricing model, then uh, capital structure Modigliani-Miller theorem. We are familiar with these things. So one thing which has been assumed by all these models, that the human is a kind of rational person, and his or her memory can be optimized by himself or herself. Say we are familiar with the memory we use for our smartphone or we use for our laptop. So we are familiar with optimizing memory. What optimization does when we optimize our memory, it frees up a space, more space for new use, and it increases our speed and it increases our efficiency. And when optimization is done, the it is possible to remove the things which are not necessary, to keep to give more space for the things which are necessary. So if we think of ourselves as a human being, do we have this kind of capacity that we can optimize our memory periodically, that we remove what is unnecessary and we give more space to our memory for the things what will be more necessary? Do we do this?
No, sir.
Okay, but the classical finance model assume that people have such kind of capacity to effectively use their memory and to retrieve the things when it is needed. And people also have the capacity to process the information which are required for making a decision. For example, one interesting example has been given in your text, what I like to share with you, that in capital asset pricing model, it is necessary that you have to know the expected return, then the variance, then the covariance of all the assets which are in the market. So can we imagine how much information it will be if all this information are gathered? Is it will it be very small, kind of a small space of information, or it will take larger space? We have more than 350 plus uh, securities traded in our stock exchange. So if we take off the expected return, variance, and the covariance of all the assets, will it be a huge information? Yes, no?
Yes.
It will be a huge information. So the application of the efficient frontier, you probably have heard about the efficient frontier in your finance class.
Yes,
Application of
sir.
efficient
Yes, sir.
frontier requires that you know all these properties of all these assets. But in reality, we do not have all this information, and even if we have all this information, we do not have the time to process all this information. So that is one particular challenge we face in reality. But in theoretically, it is uh, suggested to use all this information. So, but for some challenges, for some constants, we can't do this. So what do we do in this kind of limitation? What we are facing, we have limitation to process all this information. So we particularly we do something, we it's not like that we do not make investment. Obviously we make investment, but we do not look all of these properties of all of these assets. So we do something uh, which we will say later, that we do some shortcut, we apply some shortcut techniques in our brain to process the information. So we have the time limitation, we have the resource limitation, we have also the information limitations. So given this information limitations, how our uh, cognitive thinking or how our psychological thinking allows us to process the information or to make the decision. So the focus in our today's lecture is that how people make decision when there is a constraint of information, constraints of time, constraint of resources, and how these limitations and how these limitations invite some biases in people's mind. So we'll try to concentrate on those things. So heuristics, in short note, heuristics is kind of the mental shortcut or the shortcut techniques people use in making decisions. These are the examples of heuristics. We will know more about it later. And we will see that for kind of for having heuristics or for practicing heuristics, we get prone to exhibit some biases, and we will try to see which are those biases. So before looking at how,
Sir, excuse me, sir. I have a question. Sir, is it due to heuristics that we have some biases?
yeah, some biases are dependent on some
So it is
heuristics.
due to. Okay, okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So first of all, we will try to see what are the constraints in our memory and what are the constraints in our psychology, which enables us or which forces us to use the heuristics. We'll try to see these things first, which things force us to use the heuristics. Then we'll try to see the things, we'll see some biases or we'll see some errors in our decision making process. So first of all, we'll talk about uh, three things which are related to our uh, heuristics. I mean, why we go for using heuristics. So first thing we like to discuss the perception. The second thing we like to discuss how our memory processes, and we will also try to see uh, these are related to heuristics, and we'll also try to see the framing effect, and we are already familiar with this framing effect from our previous lectures. And if we already have mentioned one reason, that when the information is overloaded, and how we do make processing, ease of processing, and information overload. Then we'll see some examples of heuristics, and you will see some biases in follow-up discussion. So first of all, we can store information in our brain, Is it costly or costless?
Costless.
It is costless. So that's why we can't filter properly, and that what should be kept in our mind, what should not be kept in our mind. If it were costly, we would think differently. Have you got it?
Yes.
Okay. So the thing is that we have a huge amount of information in our brain, but often when we think of, or when we try to retrieve our memory, or when we try to download the information from our memory to process or to take a decision for in a future time, we see some selected things, or the things which we try to think, or the things which we like to prefer, those things come in our mind, and the things which we do not prefer to come in our mind, they do not appear in our mind. Have you observed this?
Yes,
Obviously
sir.
we have some good experience, we have some bad experience, but if our perception, the thing what I just have mentioned is a kind of perception, so we have some filter that which things should come in our mind. So it depends on the issue, on the fact that what we want to think or what we want to see. So we are imposing a filter before retrieving the information from our memory. If we like to see this, that thing comes from the memory. If we do not like to see that thing, in that case, that thing does not come from our memory. For example, how many classes I am taking for up to today's date? 5.
5 classes.
Okay. So you might have a common perception that each of the class is on an average 2 hours. Because you feel you see such kind of experience from your past experience in this program. But I believe that I have not uh, finished my class within 2 hours or 2.5 hours in one single class. Is it true? If I ask you, or if anyone asks you how long you attend in behavioral finance class, it is likely that unconsciously you would see that, or you will mention that it's 2 hours or 2 hours plus. But you see, this class is more longer. It takes much more than 2.5 hours. More than 2.5 hours. You see, in this class, the contents are long, and it takes much hours, much time. But on an average, we see that class ends during this time, or class closes during this hour. Have you experienced this, or this is a different case? Have you got what I have mentioned? Can you hear me?
So it's actually on an average, it's actually 2.5 hours.
Sorry?
I mean, it's actually 2.5 hours, but during our MBA period, we actually consider it 2 hours. That is the thing.
Okay. So typically you consider that an MBA class would be like
2
2
hours.
hours
That is the thing.
this time frame, right? Okay. But what you are
Yes.
observing in this particular course, it is taking more than 2.5, 2.5 hours, more than this time.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if uh, you go for writing that how long you attend in each class, in each of the courses in your MBA, it is very likely that you will end up writing 2 hours for the behavioral finance course also, unconsciously or subconsciously.
Yes, sir.
Is it likely? So what's the reason?
Yes, sir.
Because you have a memory, and you have a memories. We'll talk about memory later. You have a perception that an MBA class is not typically last more than 2 hours. Okay. And the thing is that we have some belief on some things and some issue, and when we see something different, it is observed that we can't recall that different thing. We end up saying the thing which we perceived earlier. So that is the challenge of having perception. And so what are the reasons for this? And it also depends on the psychology, and people get pleasure when they say something which they perceive, and if they do or if they express differently what they didn't perceive, they feel they feel it discomfortable. So there has been another experiment that voters have been surveyed in Canada before casting their vote and after casting their vote. So after casting their vote, voters are very likely to feel that the person to whom they voted, they are more likely to be selected, or they are more likely to be elected. So what is the reason for this kind of opinion? What do you think? Why they are believing that the candidates to whom they voted are more likely to be elected after casting their vote?
Actually, sir, they want him to be elected. So it's in the perception it was created previously in their mind. They want that hardly to happen.
Okay, they have made their perception in a way that the person to whom they will be voted will be the winner. Is it kind of perception they are making? Okay. So we mentioned about memory in our previous discussion. We have lots of information in our memory. But when we go for retrieving the information, we see that some selected information are retrieved and some information are not retrieved. Now we need to find out what is the reason that why memory is not putting equal space to all information. Say we have information for 10 events, we have information for 10 events, and we for each event we have information, and say a particular individual has observed all these events. Some events might be positive, some events might be negative, and for these events some information have been available and some information are kind of good information, or some information kind of misinformation. So what do you think? It has been observed that when misinformation has been available for some event, or people receive some misinformation, people tend to retrieve those information very quickly, not the information. When there are misinformation, people have a tendency to retrieve the things, the information which are kind of misinformation, or which are kind of misleading. So we see that memory is not working in a way at which we expect that our memory works. And in addition to that, it has been found that memory retrieves those things very well, which gives us emotional pleasure, or which gives us more emotions. For example, some individuals have some good memories and some individuals have some sad memories. So if we rank all the good memories, it is possible to rank the good memories, extremely good, very good, pretty good, these things. So which memory is very evergreen in your memory? What do you think? The good memory which is only good, or the good memory which was extremely good?
Memories which were extremely good.
Extremely good.
Were extremely good.
Extremely good.
Yeah. So in this case, you see that we are retrieving some information very frequently. We are retrieving this information very frequently relative to this information from our memory. In that case, memory works more for this information, and this information tend to last more relative to this information, because it has been retrieved for several times, or it has been retrieved frequently relative to this information or this event. Okay, this is how our memory works, and we will see that how my eraser is not working, that is disturbing. Okay, framing effect. And we have come to learn that framing effect influences our decision making process, and particularly when same information is presented in terms of gain, or same information is presented in terms of loss, we have seen that our responses differ. So we like to see an example, then we'll try to talk more about framing. Say, for example, I'm describing a person. A person is a kind of brilliant, then he is energetic, then he is industrious, his ugly face and poor. Okay. Now, if you read out this line, what will be your conclusion to a person who has this kind of characteristic? Good or bad? I mean, what kind of impression will be built in your mind immediately after looking at these characteristics of an individual? The way I have written. Your impression will be
Good, sir.
something positive or negative?
So I think it will be positive.
Your impression will be positive. Okay. So let me write another person's characteristics. Now, what will be your perception after looking at this sentence for an individual? Your
Same, sir.
impression will be
Positive.
something
It's a
positive
positive,
or
sir.
negative?
Positive.
Positive. Okay. So why do you think this it will also be positive? But okay, just think of when I have written this negative characteristic or negative things, don't take it for other reasons, just for learning here. Okay, just think of here when I have written here poor or ugly, and you probably have noticed that things are same. I probably have, it should be energetic. If you have the constant impression positive here and positive here, you are someone who is not affected by the framing bias or who is not influenced by the framing effect. But most of the people concludes that it will give a positive impression for some person and it will give a negative impression for the same person because of framing it differently. Okay. Do you see the headlines of the newspapers, daily newspapers? Some headlines of some news are written in a way which immediately creates negative impression. But if you start reading that news, your negative impression dilutes. You get something which are not fully negative, which are some of those contents are positive. Have you experienced such thing?
Yes, sir.
So what is the reason? This is the way how framing effect is used by people to influence other people or influence the readers or influence the decision maker. Okay, so this thing has implication, and we need to think of two things here. One is primacy effect, another one is recency effect. Say we have mentioned that death from COVID-19 has been recorded highest today, but the percentage of affected people went down yesterday. Okay, which information I have presented first? The affected people or death, number of dead people? Number of deaths. Number of deaths. Okay. If it has been found that you are influenced by the information which has been presented first, presented first, number of death, and you have, based on this, you just have, for example, you have mentioned that it is a kind of negative thing. So you have been influenced by the thing which has been presented first before you. In that case, this is the primacy effect. But if it is such that when presenting the monthly information, say when presenting the monthly information of, for example, COVID-19 cases, you have been presented the case diagnosed in March 2021 and also case diagnosed in March 2020. If it has been found that you are putting more weight on this because it has been written first. Don't think that 2021 is recent or 2022 is past. It's not like that. The information which is more recent, obviously this one is the more recent, I mean the March 2021. If you are influenced by the more recent information, in that case you are getting influenced, or your influence will be recognized as recency effect. It comes from recent event. People can retrieve the recent events more easily relative to the past events. Is it true? For example, right now, for last couple of months, the stock market went very well. But if you look at exactly 1 year before, the things are just the opposite. But people are getting motivated nowadays to invest in the stock market for which event? The event which just happened in last couple of months, or the event which happened in last 12 months ago? What do you think?
Based on recent events.
Based on the recent. So which is influencing people? Recency effect or primacy effect? Recency effect is influencing
Recency.
people. Okay. Now, let me show you some diagram. to test that how framing effect influences you. Is it a triangle? Is it a triangle, rectangle, or quadrilateral?
Triangle.
Am I doing fun? Am I doing fun? You are probably thinking I'm asking this thing is triangle or not. Okay. Can you tell me which side is the base here of this triangle? Which side is the base here? You have recognized that this is a triangle. Just now ask, give me the answer. Which side can be taken as a base?
Any side,
Sorry, this
any
one,
side, each side
this
can
one, or
be
this one?
taken as a base. Any one of them.
Sorry, right, up, or down? You're taking much time. Let me give you a typical triangle. Which is base now here?
The down one.
This one can be base. Now compare this with this. Which
Yeah.
one can be base?
The right one.
Right one. This one. This
The
one.
right one.
Yeah,
The left one maybe also.
it can be base.
Yeah.
Why? Why you are thinking it can be base?
Here, sir, one of the side can be base.
Any side. Any side can be base,
The right
or
one.
Any side can be base.
only this side.
No, any side. As it looks like uh, this one is equal.
This one is equal. Okay. Which is correct? Any side can be base, or the vertical line is only the base here?
My vote goes to any side.
Sorry, any side.
Sir, any side can be the base because it's an equilateral triangle. So the side from which
Any
we
side.
will draw the perpendicular
I have not
will be
mentioned it is equilateral triangle.
the base.
I have not mentioned it is equilateral
Sir, but
triangle.
you have given those 3 ticks.
Okay, it's just for letting you know that.
Sir, actually depends on how we place the triangle in our page.
Okay, the answer is right that any side can be base as long as you can write a perpendicular line on that. Okay, it is possible to draw a perpendicular line here.
Our page.
It is also possible to draw a line here, and also it is possible to draw a line from this direction. Okay, but we have been confused. For what reason? Because we see the triangle in this shape. Yes or no?
Normally, yes, sir.
we most likely see
Normally,
that
sir, yes.
yeah, so that's why we have lost that which line can be base. Okay, but any line can be base. Okay, so that is the way how framing effect influences us. Okay. Okay, now the thing is that we have much information. We are now talking about this point that we have much more information. So when we have a plenty of information or we have a excessive information, what we do? Let me give you an example so that you can figure out. Okay. So for example, a particular grocery store is selling a bundle of goods for coming Ramadan in your e-valley, 5 items at a price 1700 taka, of which regular price is 2900. This is regular and this is discounted price. And another bundle they are offering which has 27 items in the bundle and which would cost 6300 at the discounted price, and regular price of this is 12,000 taka. Now, which one you would like to prefer?
So 27.
27. What about others? You will go for taking the second bundle or the first bundle?
First bundle.
First bundle. Okay. Now, any other person who is preferring the first bundle over the second bundle? Anyone? All are preferring second bundle. It is not the reality. I mean, reality means if you choose the second bundle, I will give you the discount card and you will go for taking that, taking the second bundle physically. Okay, you're probably preferring the second bundle because you see the discount amount is a big amount related to the first bundle. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But it has been found that when people are presented with a large number of items, people get confused. Though people prefer this bundle, but people end up buying this bundle more. The reason is that when I will write down each of the list, each of the item of 27 items, you will get confused with some items to think that whether those items are necessary for you or those items will be unnecessary for you. But it is easy to think of the 5 items related to 27 items. What do you think? Apart from the discount differences,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
thinking
You're
about
right.
which bundle will be easier for you.
5. 5.
5.
5. 5.
So that actually people do. That actually people do when people have a huge amount of information which are difficult to process. People tend to be very selective because there is a difficulty in the processing of information and information overload. And say I have given you 1 minute to think of to buy anyone, either this or this, which will be easier to think of, this one or this one, within 1 minute?
5, sir.
So is it the reality that we have limited time for making decision?
Yes, sir.
So we just have given example from other side, but try to think of from the financial decision making. So say we have given you the information for 350 securities, a portfolio which contains these 350 securities. That portfolio is a market portfolio, but you have seen another portfolio which contains only 5 securities, so which is easy to think of, which is easy to process in terms of information processing, this 350 or this 5?
So for
Obviously
the
this
5,
5.
sir.
Yeah. So it actually happens with people, and these things are issues which influences our decision making process. Now the thing is that we have mentioned the heuristics before, so we have limited information in reality, and we have shortage of time, we have constant in the processing information. So what we do, we tend to select a subset of information and try to take decision based on that. So in that case, what we can do, we can make decision efficiently by minimizing our cost, by making economy of our cost, and we use the shortcut techniques to make the decisions. So those shortcuts in aggregate are known as heuristics. So there is, you probably have heard about the rule of thumb. So rule of thumb is a kind of heuristic, but there is a debate that heuristics are good or heuristics are not good. Obviously there are debate. So without making discussion on the debate, we just like to separate the heuristics into two groups. One group is type 1, another group is type 2. So which heuristics we try to think of type 1, and which heuristics we try to think of in the category of type 2. Say you have to take a decision within a very shortest possible time. Shortest possible time, and your stake is low. Say for example, you want to think of buying a biscuit between two types of biscuit in your travel, and you have a very short possible time, and the biscuit would cost only 20 to 25 taka of you. So you can think of the stake is very kind of low or insignificant to you. In that case, if you do some mental shortcuts, or if you do some shortcuts in taking that decision, why you are preferring, say you are preferring the O biscuit over B biscuit. These are the brand name of biscuit. This is O, this is B. Why you are preferring O biscuit? Because you try to think of that I usually eat this biscuit. That's why I'm thinking this one should be better. It could be the different, that B could be better, but why you are taking O? Because you tend to believe that as you are familiar with the O biscuit, I mean O brand biscuit, that's why you are taking the O biscuit. So in that case, the heuristics what you have used is a kind of type 1 heuristic. And if we just look at the opposite, where you need to be spend more effort, more energy, and you have a significant stake or significant interest, in that case, your heuristics will be known as in the type 2 heuristic. So you are thinking it very significantly, and you think that it will be more important to you for if you prefer a particular one over another one, and you have a significant stake on it. In that case, the heuristic, if you use, that will be kind of type 2 heuristic. So the thing is that why we use the heuristic, and we have a bundle of heuristics we use in different contexts, in different situations. And the thing is that heuristics help us to make the decision in a very shortest possible time. But it is not necessary that heuristics always give us, obviously it saves our time, it saves our money, but it's not necessarily that it gives us the right decision which need to be taken by the decision maker. So we'll try to see some example of heuristic first, then we will give 10 minutes break, then we'll make discussion with some biases which are related to heuristics. So say you are sleeping at night, and all of a sudden you have a sound has been listened by you, and that sound is a big sound, is a kind of alarming sound. So you thought that it is kind of sound from weapon, or but you do not know, you are not confirmed that is this sound is a kind of some firing or sound comes from some weapon. But irrespective of instead of knowing what is the source of the sound, what you will do first, you will try to save yourself first, or you will try to close down your window, or you will try to hide yourself. Is it a likely behavior of individual?
Likely, sir.
Okay, but what would be necessary first to know what is the source of the sound? So the sound can come from fireworks, or the sound can come from firing. Fireworks spelling is okay. The sound can come from either of these two sources, either from fireworks or from firing.
Can be, sir.
But when you do this in first attempt, or you do this after ensuring your safety first, then you go for exploring what is the reason, right? Okay. Have you got it? Have you got it? Yes, no?
স্যার সোর্সটা আগে তো ক্লিয়ার হওয়া উচিত।
Yeah, but do we do this in first attempt?
নো স্যার,
No, we do
in
not
general
do
very
this in
effective.
first attempt.
In general very effective.
Okay. So second thing is that what we do in another case, say in our refrigerator, where say we 8 people use the same refrigerator. So some people are familiar with some foods and all people are not familiar with all foods which are kept in the refrigerator. So one individual, say particular one individual has opened the refrigerator and experienced some odor. So what he has done, he has found the item which is creating the odor and disposed that item. But later it has been known that the item which has been disposed by that person, that item has not been spoiled, or the item was fresh, but the item was not familiar with him. That's why he thought that the smell what is coming from that item, that unknown item, he thought that that is kind of bad smell. Does it happen? Does it happen when we are not familiar with some dish items? When we are not familiar with some items, we tend to think that those items are not good, or those items have got rotten. That's why you need to dispose those items.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
But what is necessary first? The necessary attempt, what should be taken first to know about that item and how it should smell, if the item is good or if the item is not good, right? But instead of knowing that, what we do? We tend to dispose that item when we see that the smell what is coming from that item is not familiar to us. Okay. So let's take a 10 minutes break, then we can continue for. So what we can do, we can look at some biases which arise from the heuristics we use in decision-making process. And it also introduce us some heuristics we use in making decision. Say for example, if I give you to choose two investment, it is very likely that even after having the same characteristics of two investments of products, you tend to prefer that investment product which is more familiar with you. So familiarity has no risk premium. The thing is that if you prefer a familiar investment, it is not like that will give you more reward. But people have a tendency to pick that product which is more familiar with them. And also not only investment product, in any decision making process, people tend to think of that option which is more familiar with themselves. So it has been, let me show you some research findings. So one thing is that it has been found that in global investors, the people who invest in multiple countries, it has been found that their portfolio contains more securities which are listed in their home country. So they overweight their home country companies. Say, for example, Chinese investors include more investment in their portfolio which have their businesses in China and which have their head office in China. And also within the country, it has been found that people tend to overweight those investment which do business in their home region within a country. Say, for example, in our country, some businesses are Dhaka based, some businesses are Chittagong based, or some businesses are other region based. So if you look at the portfolio of these individuals who of whom home country is Dhaka, or sorry, of whom home region is Dhaka, or of whom the home region is Chittagong, you will tend to see that the investors who live in Chittagong, they include more securities in their portfolio of those companies which have their core operation or which have their main factory in Chittagong. Have you observed this, or are you you yourself is experiencing this bias by yourself, that you tend to prefer that company which has operation in your local town?
স্যার এটা খেয়াল করেছি যে গোল্ডেন হারভেস্টের পরটা যে খায় সে গোল্ডেন হারভেস্টের শেয়ার কিনতে চায়, বা জিপি সিম ইউজ করাতে হয়তো বা জিপিটাকে প্রেফার করে আগে, ওখানে চাকরি করাতে হয়তো তারা ওটা আগে প্রেফার করে। এটা অবজার্ভ করেছি স্যার। ওই যে ঢাকা বেসড,
yeah, the examples what I just have mentioned are the sub examples of familiarity bias. What you have mentioned is another dimension of familiarity. So the thing is that it has been found that the employees who work in GP, they tend to include GP in their portfolio. They tend to believe that they know more about GP relative to others. Is it the reason?
Right, sir. Right, sir.
Okay, so this is kind of familiarity bias. And also in case of pension fund, it has been found that say, for example, a particular company, Square, has a pension fund. You would see that the employees who have subscription in that pension fund, they tend to invest more in the Square because that is their that is the company in which they work, and they tend to believe that they have the information advantage over other investors on that particular company. But it is not necessarily true. And if it is actually true, that is the violation of the market law. That is the violation of the regulation, because the information it should be available to all investors equally, right? If you have access to some information which is not available to the investors, in that case that is the conflict arise, and
sir,
you
insider
will be,
trading, sir.
yeah,
Trading, sir.
You will be sued for the insider trading by the regulator. Okay, so in that case, what do you think? The family, it is kind of something bias, or it is good to have the familiarity bias? What do you think? It is good?
এটা স্যার আমি স্যার মনে করি নেগেটিভই স্যার, বায়াসটা নেগেটিভই স্যার।
Yeah,
কারণ হয়তো বা ফেভার করছে, তার কম্পারিজনটা সে প্রপারলি করতে পারে না। অল্টারনেটিভসটা আর কি স্যার, মানে যখন সেক্টরাল সে হয়তো বা চিন্তা করছে প্রেফার করছে আগে, সে তার সেক্টরে যে হয়তো বা জিপি বেটার করছে সেটা সে প্রেফার, মানে
right.
এই বায়াসটার কারণে।
Okay, yeah, exactly. So the thing is that another research findings I like to share with you with respect to familiarity is that
সেক্টরাল সে হয়তো বা চিন্তা করছে ধর রবির এমপ্লয়িজ আর সে প্রপারলি করতে পারে।
yes, okay, so these authors are Chip Heath and,
অল্টারনেটিভসটা আর কি স্যার।
sorry, I couldn't listen the last thing. Okay, Chip Heath and Amos Tversky, Heath and Tversky did a study in 1991 probably. What they tried to see, the competence hypothesis. Heath and Tversky in 1992, what they have done, they study the familiarity bias in a way that how the familiarity develops and how competence develops and how it affects people preference. Okay, so what they did, they provided some MCQ questions to the respondents, some GK MCQ. So their study, their options were two stage. I mean, they tried to see the experiment of a gamble, and their gamble had a two stage. One gamble, but it had two stage, first and the second. So in first stage, what they did, they provided some general knowledge MCQs to the people or to the respondents, and they have provided four options A, B, C, D for each question. And in addition to that, they also ask the respondent, when you are selecting this, for example, this one, they have picked this, write the confidence level you are experiencing or you are feeling when you are selecting this. Say I'm 20% confident with B, that's why I have selected B. Or I'm 80% confident with B, that's why I have selected B. Have you got the structure, what they have asked from the people in the first stage? Have you got it? Yes, no? Yes, no? Otherwise I have to
বুঝতে
repeat.
পারিনি স্যার, আরেকবার যদি একটু স্যার বুঝাতে।
Okay. The purpose is to check that how familiarity develops or how competence develops among the people. So Heath and Tversky ask people some questions. So what kind of questions? Say, which city is the capital of Cambodia? And these are kind of questions. And they have given some multiple answers, A, B, C, D. So when someone picks a particular answer, for example, this B, he will pick the B, but at the same time, he has to write that how much confident he is when he is picking this answer B. That's why he has to write what percentage do you think you are right. Say, for example, the answer of this question is Hanoi, the Cambodia's capital. And he has to write that how much confident he is or how much right he feels that he is. He has written 70%. So have we got that? Have we got this?
জি স্যার এই পর্যন্ত বুঝতে পেরেছি স্যার।
Okay. Now it has been found that then they have averaged, say we have 10 questions. So for each question, each individual has put down a confidence percentage for each question.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So can we make an average confidence of this person?
Yes, sir, sure.
Okay. So we can do this for all individuals. So this is the first stage. So it has already been done, the MCQ type questions and the confidence level. And in the second stage, what is the option? The option is that if it has been found that the option what you selected in the first stage or you're right or you're correct, you will get a certain payoff. Or there is another option in the bet that you will get a payoff with 60% probability. You will get a payoff with how much probability? 60% probability. So it has been found that the person who are scoring a high range in the first bet, say high range means, say I'm meaning 60% to 70% on an average their confidence level. Can you recall from where this confidence measure, from where this confidence measure has come? Can you recall the first stage?
স্যার প্রথমে মানে প্রত্যেক অ্যানসারের সাথে সে কতটুকু কনফিডেন্সটা দিতে হবে?
Yeah. So it is possible to get the average of all individual, average of each individual. Say individual 1 70%, individual 2 20%, individual 2 3 10%, individual 4 60%. It is possible for list of the probable list the competence of all individuals. And who is more competent here? The person who scored high in the first stage. These are the high competent, and these people have low competency.
In general, yes, sir. Yes.
But there is a problem also.
Right.
See,
they can be wrong with
they
high
can
confidence.
be wrong, but their confidence can be higher. Yeah. So
right, sir.
Yeah. So it has been found that the people who scored high in their confidence level in the first stage, they will be more likely to pick this option in the second stage or this option in the second stage. I'm asking about those people who are more competent. How I have defined competent? I have defined competency in a way with the people who have the self-confidence rating, who have the self-confidence rating, say 60%, 70%. They will pick a certain payoff, or they will pick a payoff with 60% probability. Note that when a certain payoff is given, obviously that certain payoff is less than the expected payoff from this uncertain gamble. Can you recall the certainty equivalent expected payoff we learned in earlier class? just to give me the answer, which one they tend to prefer.
People would prefer the higher confidence level. I think.
I mean, the people who have put high confidence rating to them, they will tend to prefer in the second stage, they'll tend to prefer this certain payoff, or they'll tend to prefer this option, the competence, the random bet.
The higher segment, sir, payoff reasonable মনে হচ্ছে স্যার। স্যার যাদের হাই কনফিডেন্স আছে তাদের জন্য তো পে অফ বলতে কি স্যার এখানে এভারেজটা মিন করা হচ্ছে নাকি স্যার?
Let me remind you these two options again. This payoff will only be possible if your answer in the first stage was correct. Have you got it?
Okay, sir.
The first one.
Got it.
The second one. If your it is not necessary that your answer was wrong or right, but if you select this, you will have a payoff which has a 60% probability that you will get a certain payoff with 60% probability, and there is a 40% probability that you will get nothing.
Sir, people will choose the 60% probability because they are not 100% sure.
Which people?
Anyone who is not confident enough that their answer is correct.
I'm asking for the people.
They are not confident that.
I'm asking for the people who are more competent.
If they are more competent, let's say they are 80% sure of their answer, they would choose the payoff. They are pretty sure of their themselves, and they would like to get 100% surety on their reward.
Yeah, it has been found that the people who have scored high,
sure of themselves, and they would like to
who have scored themselves high, and they pick this one. They pick this one. Why do you think? Because they tend to believe that their competence is higher, and they do not go for this random lottery. They do not go for this random lottery. So why they are thinking of this payoff is right option, because they are feeling that they are more competent and they are more familiar with this, and now that's why they are preferring this one. So they are giving their judgment more high confidence, and they also tend to choose this payoff more. So this study was conducted by two people I mentioned, Heath and Tversky. So they have found that there is a relation, there is a positive relation between the probability they are imposing when they are judging themselves and the choice they are making, which choice they are favoring the payoff which is received if his selected answer was correct. Their percentage choice, they have observed their relation between these two. Is it positive? And what do you think? The people who have put them in the lowest score, set individual 2 and individual 3, they will prefer this, or they will prefer the payoff with 60% probability.
Payoff with 60% probability.
Remember, this payoff is
put
only
them wrong.
available. This payoff is only available if the answer is correct.
Them wrong.
Have you got it?
Yeah, that's why they would choose the 60% 60% chances. They're not confident about themselves.
So why do you think person, say individual 1 and individual 4,
they're not confident about themselves.
they have become more confident with in the second stage? They are exposing more confidence in the second stage because they are you see, it is more risky, because if the answer has been found wrong, you are getting no payoff. They are taking the risk here. If the answer is wrong, they are getting no payoff. Have you got it? So this confidence has been boosted up by, for what reason? Because they have been familiar, they have become familiar with the gamble by putting more score to them in the first stage. They are feeling that they will be as competent, they are more competent, and they have put them in the high score range, and they are feeling that they are more competent, and that's why they are picking this one. So there is a relation that how competence has influenced the people to choose a particular option. So this competence is actually self-rated competence. It is not the independent competency based on the correct answer. This competency is based on how people judge themselves. So let's go to the second bias, second heuristic, which is ambiguity aversion. So that is interesting. Before discussing the ambiguity aversion, let me relate this question with you. Let me relate the examples what we just have mentioned. Okay. You see, the people who are preferring, who are scoring less here, or who are giving less score to them in the first stage, what is the reason they are preferring this, the payoff with 60% probability? We have got the reason that the people have got the competence and people are familiar. That's why people are putting, these people 1 and 4 are picking the payoff if the answer was correct, and no payoff if the answer is wrong. But the other people who are scoring less, why they are picking this? Have you got the question so that I can give you the answer? These individuals, I have mentioned that these individuals who scored them less, they are preferring this option, which have 60% probability for the payoff. They are not picking this. And when 60% payoff is available, there is nothing with the right or wrong answer, what you have done in the first stage. Can you think of any reason why those people are preferring this payoff with 60% probability? Why they
Lower
choose?
confidence, sir.
Sorry?
Yes, sir. Sir, lower confidence on
They have
their
the lower confidence.
on themselves and
Okay, you see, there is ambiguity with this option. Why ambiguity? You see that if the answer is correct, of course you are getting the payoff. But if the answer is wrong, you are getting nothing. You are getting zero. But you can't ascertain or you can't determine how much probability or how much likely is that your answer was correct. Can this person know it precisely that how much they are correct exactly? These are their perception. These are their perception. But the actual number is not known to them, right? Actual number is not known to them. In that case, which one is safer? This one is safer or this one is safer? Which one is less ambiguous? If you pick this option, you have nothing to worry about what you did in the first stage, right? But if you pick this, you have to worry about how much you performed in the first stage.
the lower 60% chance is the better options to
It has lower
better chance.
ambiguity. It has lower ambiguity. It is more clear.
Right, sir.
That's why they are preferring this. So that is kind of thing which is known as ambiguity aversion. Ambiguity aversion. People have a tendency to avoid that option of which the probability cannot be known with certainty, or people cannot ascertain probability correctly. So can you remember the uncertainty and the risk? Uncertainty and the risk we discussed in earlier class. Remember, people do not like to avoid the risk. Some people tend to avoid the risks. That is another concept, the risk aversion. But people have a tendency to get far away from the uncertainty. How uncertainty is different? Because in uncertainty, what we cannot do, we cannot ascertain the probability. We cannot ascertain the probability. But in risk, what can we do? We can ascertain the events, what are likely and what will be the probabilities. We can define. But in uncertainty, it is not possible that how much events are likely. And it is not also possible to determine the probabilities. So in ambiguity aversion, which one people are avoiding this one, where it is unlikely to ascertain or to determine the probabilities with confidence or with certainty. Okay, so let me show you another paper which is very popular at Edgeburg paper on the ambiguity aversion. Okay, this is here. Okay, so are you watching my screen? I'm giving you some quiz. Okay, so you have two urns before you, urn A and urn B. So you have been said that urn A has 50 black ball and 50 red ball. And how many total ball? 100 balls. And in urn B, there are 100 balls, but you do not know how much of the balls are red balls or how much balls are the black balls. Now, you have two options. If you draw one ball from urn A, and if that is black, you will get 100 pound, and if it is otherwise, you will get 0. And the information which is known to you is here. And I will tell you more detail about it. And bet B is like that. If you draw one ball and that ball is red, sorry, that ball is black, you will get 100 pound. But if it is red, you will get 0. And you will not be known before that which box or which urn you will pick or which urn you will select. So between this, which bet you will pick, which one is favorable to you? Bet A or bet B?
And A.
A?
Yes, sir. More information is available, I think.
And A.
Urn A is okay. Anyone urn B?
Yes, sir. If anyone is adventurous or trying to take any kind of risk, then they can go for unbig.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm writing here that many are preferring the, sorry, you are preferring urn A. Urn A over, okay, it is not urn A exactly.
They can go for unbig.
Bet A is preferred over bet B. Okay. Now you have a follow-up bet, which is like, if you prefer, if you the pick black from here, sorry, if you now prefer, if you now pick the red one now, you will get 100 pound. Now it is bet C. And in bet D, if you selected ball is red, you will get 100. Otherwise, you will get 0. Now, which one you will prefer between bet C and bet D? Remember, you
C,
have
sir.
you have preferred bet A here. You have preferred bet A here. Now, which one you will prefer here? Bets between bet C and bet D. What do you think? Which one is more likely to give you the red ball between bet C and bet D?
So for C, it's 50%.
Bet C has 2% probability of giving a red ball.
Bet C
Has 2% probability.
Okay. Okay. That answer is up to you. Now I'm asking which one you prefer, bet C or bet D in this case. This is bet C and bet D.
C, sir.
Bet C. Okay. Now I'm writing here. Bet C has been preferred over bet D. Now, I'll give you the answer later. What's wrong with here? Can you ask me why you have avoided earn B instead of having the same total 100 balls, and there are also black ball and red ball? Because the probabilities
Because
are not known to you.
people do not like the lack of lack of numbers and knowledge or any kind of information.
Okay, people tend to avoid the ambiguity, and people
Yes, sir.
tend to avoid the option for which the probabilities cannot be known. Say like earn B, we can't ascertain how much probability,
Lack of
yeah, for black ball or for red ball. Okay, so we can't ascertain, or we can't give any probability number here. So what can we do in that case? Or
numbers.
what? Okay. So the situation when we can't ascertain or calculate the probabilities, what we do then? We do some subjective assessment. We do some subjective assessment to give some probabilities. Okay. If I ask you what is the probability of rain tonight, how much probability you will give? Will you go for collecting the information of weather? How much probability you will put? You will go for making objective probability estimation or subjective probability estimation. You know the difference between subjective and objective.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if objective probability is not known to you, you might go for estimating some subjective probability. But it has been found that subjective probability is when people make the subjective probability, they often violate the axioms of the expected utility theory. They often violate the axioms of the expected utility theory. So our question is that what you have done just before, just couple of minutes ago, are consistent with the choice of most of the people. Most of the people prefer bet A in the first bet over bet B, and then prefer bet C over bet D. And it has been discovered by Ellsberg in 1961 in a very influential paper, which is later known as Ellsberg paradox. So we'll see. You see, the monetary outcome are same for both lotteries. So what is differentiating these lotteries? The lotteries are different only to the extent that probabilities are known or probabilities are not known with certainty. So we need to, as we know that what is the probability, one has already mentioned that we know the probability of getting black ball from the earn A or getting the red ball from the earn A. How much probability one has mentioned? The 2%. Okay, obviously that is good. But what we need to know, we do not know what is the probability of picking the same ball from the earn B. We need to figure out that. So if we can figure out that, we can then conclude that whether the choice of A and then C are consistent or they are not consistent. Say, for example, when you have in the first bet, when you have preferred bet A over bet B, what does it mean? The probability of getting black ball from urn B is less than 50%. Why you are preferring bet A here? You are preferring bet A because you are thinking that the probability of selecting black ball from the urn B is less than 50%.
Yes, sir.
Is less than 50%. That's why you have selected which one? You have selected bet A. Okay. Now, what was the follow-up question? Okay. Before going to the follow-up question, let me share the question again. If the probability of selecting black ball from urn B, is it less than 50% or more than 50%? Why you have selected bet A? Because it is less than 50%, right? From urn B, it is less than 50%. That's why you have picked the bet A. Can you recall? You already have mentioned that you are selecting urn A because you are believing that the probability of selecting black ball from urn A is greater than the urn B. So what is the probability? The probability here you see that in urn B, the probability is less than 50%. That's why you are selecting urn A. From where we are getting 50-50. This distribution. Is it? I can't hear you. When I'm selecting RNA, I'm believing that the probability of selecting, getting black ball from RN B is less than 50%.
That's belief who are choosing on B. Yes, sir.
Okay, it's less than 50%. Okay. Now, if it is less than 50%, to select the black ball from RN B, can we write that probability of selecting red ball from RN B in the same way? It is in the follow-up case, in this case, where we have asked for red ball. It should be greater than 50%. What you have mentioned, you have preferred bet A over bet B. For what reason? You are believing that the probability of getting black ball from urn B is less than 50%. Do we have any problem with this?
No.
So if it is true, the probability of getting red ball from urn B should be greater than 50% or less than 50%. Relate it.
Less than 50%, sir, technically.
Sorry?
Less than 50%, sir? 50%, sir.
Which one? You are preferring bet A here because you are believing that the probability of selecting the black ball from here is less than 50%. Is it true?
True, sir.
Okay.
True, sir.
In that case, if I go for selecting a red ball from here, the probability should be greater than 50% or less than 50% or
Greater
equal to
than 50%, sir.
So in that case, for red ball, I should prefer the earn B or earn A.
Unbe, sir.
Earn B. So earn B was available in bet A, bet C or bet D.
Bet D.
But which one I
D.
preferred? Which one we preferred for red ball?
Bet C, sir.
So we are wrong? People are wrong?
We were biased by seeing the information, sir, actually, available information.
So we are wrong. Logically, one should prefer bet D if he preferred bet A in first stage, right? Okay.
Right, sir.
So what's the reason in every time you are preferring earn A? What's the reason? Have you got the reason why you are avoiding earn A every time? Why you are avoiding earn B every time? Because we tend to avoid the situation of which we don't know much about, and we can't determine the probability of the event with that particular situation. We tend to avoid that situation. Have you got the reason? Have you got the evidence that people have a tendency to show the ambiguity aversion? Yes, no? Yes? No? I can't hear anything. Okay. Okay, I assume that you have got the thing, the ambiguity aversion. Who has documented it? I have mentioned the author, Ellsberg. Ellsberg paradox. Okay, you'll see this paper is a seminal paper which has more than 30,000 probably, more than 30,000 citations of this paper. Okay, this is very interesting. What can you do? You can look for this paper for getting more insight about this. Okay. Now let's talk about another bias, which is diversification heuristic. In diversification heuristic, what we do, if we do not have any, if we do not have options which are mutually exclusive, say we have a multiple option. An interesting example has been given in your text, that is, if you have a multiple dish items in a buffet dinner, is there anyone who skip a number of items and only concentrate only on 2 items? Anyone?
Sometimes, sir, when two answers are similar or close enough, and I'm not sure.
Okay, but what is the tendency of the people to test all of these items?
All of these items, yes, sir.
To test all of these items. what kind of risk people feel when they avoid a particular dish? What kind of risk they avoid? What kind of risk they tend to get free of by choosing all of this? Because they believe that the dish they might not taste might be a good one, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, at the same time, people do the same thing when people go for making shopping. The things are showcased in a way that people get confused. People tend to pick all items in a equal quantity or in the same quantity, believing that they might miss any good chance if they don't buy this particular test. So what might be the reason for this kind of preference, where people are taking all of this? There is a rule of thumb in diversification heuristic, that is the way that, say I have 10 stocks before you, and you have $1,000 to invest. So what kind of a naive diversification people do? Buy each stock for $100. So they believe that it is diversification. Is it a diversification?
Not properly, sir.
So it is a kind of naive diversification. It is a kind of naive diversification.
Risk-adjusted, sir.
Okay.
Risk-adjusted.
Yeah. So people tend to believe that they have made a good diversification. Actually, they do not. They have not done that thing. Okay. So when people do this, the preference of people to some certain things cannot be known exactly, and at the same time, why people do this? Because people tend to avoid uncertainties associated with the thing what he might miss. So that's why he tend to prefer all of these things. And another thing is that by nature, people has a tendency uh, to have a variety of choice, so that uh, they can make their decisions simpler. You see, when you're selecting 10 stocks or when you're selecting 2 stocks, which one is easier? Selecting 2 stocks or selecting 10 stocks out of 10 stocks? Which one is easier? Which one requires less effort from you?
Just selecting two
Selecting
stocks.
2 or 10?
Two, sir.
Selecting
Two,
2.
sir.
So that is another reason why people tend to behave like this. Okay, status quo bias.
Two stocks.
Status quo bias is that people do not prefer to change the thing what they are holding, or the situation at which they are
Two, sir.
currently existing. People believe that if they change their condition, if they change their position, they believe that they will disturb their comfort zone. So within the comfort zone, say for example, you do some group work, in your academic works, or you do group work in your job. So people have a tendency to exist in the same group always. What is the reason? People feel that if they make changes in their group, if anything wrong happens, and they might have to make a regret, which might not be good for them. That's why they tend to avoid changing group. That's why they consistently in the same maintain the same group. Is it true? Is it likely? Does it happen? Does it happen? Does it happen to you?
It does. It does. Sir. It does. Sir. It does. Sir.
Okay.
It happens, sir. It
Come to
happens, sir.
mutual fund. Say, for example, you have invested in a particular mutual fund. For long 10 years, you are with that mutual fund. Even after it has been found that there are new mutual funds in the market which are giving higher return, but instead of knowing that, you are continuing your investment with that particular mutual fund in which you made your first investment 10 years ago. Why you are maintaining the same investment with that particular mutual fund? Because you believe that change will disturb your comfort zone. You will have to communicate with new people, or you have to go to new bank, or you have to fill new form, you have to read out new conditions. Have you got it?
Got it, sir. Familiarity bias.
Yeah.
Familiarity bias.
Yeah, that is also related, but here we are mentioning it as status quo bias. Okay. And it has also been observed that, say, 5 years ago, you have made a allocation in your fixed income, equities, your real estate, you have made an allocation. But after 5 years, your condition might change, right? In that case, your allocation should change, your asset allocation should change. But it might be observed that people do not change this because they tend to feel comfortable with the allocation what they are currently holding, instead of changes in their condition, market situation, or the asset market condition. Okay. And the final thing what we like to conclude, that is endowment effect. That is, people tend to believe that the thing or the asset or the holding what they are currently holding is more valuable than the thing which they do not hold. Say, for example, if I like to give, what kind of example I can give you? That is, if we ask our father to sell a real estate of him, what he bought 20 years ago, he would charge a price, say 50 lakhs. But it can be observed that in the market of the same property is trading at a 40 lakhs. Father is not wanting to sell his property below this price. He is thinking it more valuable than the market price. But at the same time, when the father is going to buy another real estate from a new place or new location, higher, the market price is, say, for example, 30 lakhs, but father is preferring to pay 15 lakhs, or preferring to think that the real estate price in that new location cannot be more than 15 lakhs, but the market price is 30 lakhs. Does it happen?
Yes, sir, it happens often.
It happens often. So just try to relate it with the stocks. When we hold a particular stock, we think that that is more valuable relative to other stocks which we do not currently hold. and the stocks which we do not hold, we tend to underestimate those stocks. We tend to believe that that should be traded at a lower price relative to the price at which they are trading at the market. So that actually happens for the endowment effect. The asset with which people are endowed, they tend to believe that those assets are more valuable relative to the assets which are not on which with which the investors are not endowed with those assets. Okay, so what we have mentioned status Q bias, and we have mentioned prospect theory in previous class, and you can relate with these things with the prospect theory. Prospect theory has told us that people do not look at the outcome or look at the prospects in a way how they should look at according to the expected utility theory. They look at the prospects in a different way. These are the same reasons what I just have mentioned, why people's looking at the prospect differ from the uh, ideal perspective. So we like to conclude our today's session here.